Tens of thousands of refugees from all over the world have resettled in upstate New York over the last few decades. They came legally from Burma and the Congo and Syria and many other countries. They've stabilized population loss upstate and sparked economic rebounds in Utica and Buffalo and other cities. One key to their success is a resettlement program that helps them land on their feet when they arrive. But the Trump administration may be killing that program. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, February 21st. First up, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, conducted a raid at a Franklin County lumber mill earlier this week and detained 9 employees. Village Police Chief Eric Prue confirmed the, quote, immigration enforcement operation took place Tuesday at the Tupper Lake Pine Mill.
In my 32 years, I've never had an operation where they had to notify me that I know of in my area, so this is a first for me too.
The mill is owned by the Quebec-based Matra Group. Co-president Nicholas Drouin said in a statement to NCPR that as far as his company knew, all 9 employees were authorized to work in the U.S. ICE didn't provide comment for this story by deadline. The raid coincides with the Trump administration's crackdown on undocumented immigrants. Trump border czar Tom Homan told CNN this week they're ramping things up to try to reach the president's migrant arrest goals.
So what we're talking about right now, we're increasing the number of teams, increase the targeting, the division of ICE that creates a target list of, finding who these people are, what their criminal history is, and where we're most likely to find him. We got to increase the targeting production.
The raid in Tupper Lake was first reported by the Adirondack Daily Enterprise. President Trump's pursuit of increased immigration enforcement could also have major impacts on New York's agriculture industry. It's estimated a couple thousand, mostly Mexican and Central American immigrants work on dairy farms across the state, most of them illegally. The New York Public News Network's Rebecca Redelmeyer spoke to a farmer about what the uptick in arrests of unauthorized immigrants could mean for the dairy industry.
Anxieties are running high on New York's dairy farms.
There is a lot of nervousness.
That's a New York State dairy owner. WSKG agreed to withhold his name because he's concerned speaking out could make his farm a target for immigration authorities. His farm has around 5,000 cows and 35 full-time employees. He says about 20 of those employees are foreign-born, mostly from Mexico. Many have authorization to work in the U.S., but he says it's difficult to tell if all their papers are legitimate.
They have a Social Security card and they have a permanent resident card. And so we take those and we look at them, and if they look good to us, then we consider them good.
This dairy owner says it's been difficult to find Americans willing to work on his farm. Hours are long, and the work is often physically demanding. That's why he says the farm relies on long-standing relationships with workers from Mexico.
It's not like you can just bring people in and work for 6 or 8 or 10 months and change them and have a new group come in. It takes training, and over time they learn a lot more skills and become quite valuable.
He says he supports making sure people are following immigration laws. But without foreign-born workers, he worries New York's dairy industry could fall apart.
We're all about border security, and I totally understand and support the need and want for border security. But we need to figure out how we can have a workforce that's here year-round and is trained and able to do the job.
He hopes to see the federal government expand visa programs for farm workers to work in the U.S. year-round. In Ithaca, I'm Rebecca Redelmeyer for the New York Public News Network.
More than 1,000 refugees in New York are in limbo after the Trump administration ordered resettlement agencies to immediately stop services. Volunteers are stepping in, while some of the newest Americans worry about what comes next. Jimmy Vielkind from the New York Public News Network tagged along on a food delivery in Rensselaer and has our story.
Go straight all the way down there.
All the way down?
Yeah. Okay.
Each week, retired teacher Anthony Bango loads his Subaru with boxes of groceries. He picks up a refugee from Myanmar named Po So, who came to the U.S. in 2014. Anthony has become his mentor over the last decade. The two head off to meet some of the newest residents of these old upstate river cities.
We have some food for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're in the front of your house. We'll be right in.
Yes, okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Today, it's another refugee family from Myanmar that arrived a few weeks ago. The local office of the nonprofit U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, or USCRI, is helping them get on their feet before they start looking for work.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
In many upstate New York cities, a slow but deliberate process of resettlement has stabilized neighborhoods and provided new workers. 18,000 people have been resettled in Utica over the past 4 decades. But now, all this work is in peril. Days after taking office, President Trump froze funding for new refugees. The administration ordered agencies like USCRI to stop their work on federal contracts. Bango thinks it's a terrible move.
I'm sure that the powers that be, most of them don't have a clue what's going on with these kids.
USCRI and other resettlement agencies across the state have laid off their staff and scrambled to raise donations. They usually spend around $1,700 to cover each refugee's costs for the first few months. That funding is now cut off. More than 1,000 newcomers in Albany, Utica, and Buffalo are affected.
I was shocked because that was a step beyond what we had all anticipated.
Jennifer Rizzo Choi leads the International Institute of Buffalo. That city gained population in the last decade as it welcomed thousands of refugees. She says there's a big difference between people who illegally cross the southern border to claim asylum and refugees who often wait overseas for years.
So it is a very secure and vetted population that is coming in, and it has unfortunately been conflated with the migrant numbers and the crisis at the border that has continued to dominate the headlines over the last few years.
The White House says the country has been, quote, inundated with immigrants and now lacks the ability to absorb more refugees in a manner that doesn't take resources from Americans or compromise security. At the Albany office of USCRI, the funding freeze was a punch in the gut. The hallway is lined with boxes of diapers, cleaning supplies, and other household essentials. Director David Sussman says it's all come in since the order, which forced him to lay off 7 workers. Distribution falls to volunteers.
So we're just in a rapid response mode. We hope those staff will be able to be rehired, but now we're using their desk spaces for the items that are donated.
Around the corner, dozens of people from different countries attend an orientation session. Thursday's topic is personal finance, with English translated into Arabic, Burmese, and the Afghan language Dari.
See what you have left over at the end, and that's what you can save.
A 30-year-old Burmese woman named Kitar sits in the middle of the room. She arrived in Albany a few days before Christmas. Then her case manager lost their job, and now she worries about the rent that USCRI was supposed to pay.
We are homeless right now. We worry every day, can we go back to our country? Or
Sussman says the orientation classes are also now in peril. He's trying to keep them by switching the funding source to a state grant.
This is a way for us to keep the refugees cared for, informed, but having to work through a state program rather than the federal program.
Anybody have question about budgeting part?
State lawmakers are considering a new budget that could fill the funding cap just down the road at the Capitol. For the New York Public News Network, I'm Jimmy Vielkind in Albany.
We have more news all the time and through the weekend on our website, ncpr.org. If you listen to Story of the Day on the radio at 5:48, if you're listening to Story of the Day right now on the radio at 5:48 each weekday, and you sometimes wish you could listen at a different time, well, guess what? You can. Subscribe to the podcast of Story of the Day. Same great show, usually available almost 2 hours earlier and totally free. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to ncpr.org/podcasts for details. Music today by Eddie Lawrence of Saranac Lake and Pencil Dive of Saratoga Springs. Have a super weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.